Alrighty, so we can get this into the picture a little bit better, guys. All right, so most of you know I'm kind of a gun buff, if you will. I enjoy doing a lot of shooting and what have you. Well, I actually stopped at one of my favorite places, which sometimes gets me in trouble. Anyways, yeah, we've got other things to take care of, but just wanted to kind of do a quick little review. Been having a few people ask me about reviews whenever I've stopped at their shops and what have you. So this is actually one that I've just recently picked up here in the last month, as far as to add to my own personal collection, which is the Sauer P227. It's 45 caliber. Very nice gun. Went ahead and actually did the screen print in on the magazines to go ahead and help visually tell which one's what. Reason why is because I've got so many different magazines in the actual safe with all the different firearms, and this is not the only Sig Sauer that I own, so I wanted to kind of be able to reach in there and grab without looking for, you know, specifics on the ends and what have you. I wanted things to stand out and be a little bit more bold, so that's part of the reason why we did that. Good afternoon, Nick. Speaking of which, I'm glad to see you pop in there for just a minute, buddy. Like I said, I know that this is like way out in left field. However, like I said, we've had a few different calls for stuff like this. So it's something that you're going to start seeing a few more gun reviews actually being posted here in the future. But this one, like I said, it's not going to be long, but hey, we're out here for just a short on it. But we're actually going to talk about the Sig Sauer P227. One of the interesting things about this gun that I had found out actually the day of purchase that I really hadn't kept up on or anything else, which kind of made me feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy about the actual firearm, is this is actually one of them that ISP carries themselves for daily protection. Now, for the ISP, most of you aren't aware, but that stands for Indiana State Police. So this is actually their daily carry. So it's actually a wonderful piece to be able to get a hold of. I was lucky enough to procure this one because it was used. So that's how we actually came across that. So one of the things we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and pull the other one. We're going to go ahead, check it, make sure it's clear, and then kind of go from there. All right, so one of the first things that is nice about this, instead of the old 1911 version style, what have you, that everybody associates with a 1911, is we're going to look at the magazine. Now you're going to probably notice that this is much thicker than a standard 1911. Reason why? This is actually a 10-round mag, so it is what I call semi-double stack, meaning that they actually lay in there at an angle in order to go ahead and give you what you need. Yeah, radio to gun. Yeah, don't worry, we will be back to radios yet this afternoon. So, that's just one of them that I wanted to kind of drop in here with and show you guys a little bit about. Reason why we're doing this is there's a couple people that I ran into that actually they've never fired one of these. So with being very few people that aren't associated with law enforcement, to actually be able to have one of these, like I said, it's actually very hard for the average person to walk in and find one. This particular one which is kind of hard to see because of some of the lighting. It's nearly pristine. That's one of the things that drew it to me. But we'll go through a couple of the different features that I've noticed. Now, I've not dug super deep into it, but we'll show you a few different things. Like I said, we've already showed that it is cleared. Don't tempt me. Please don't tempt me. One of the things that I did do this that doesn't come standard, we went ahead and did a screen print, or had a screen print done to this for the inlay for the Sig Sauer, just to make it stand out a little bit. Believe it or not, it actually doesn't stand out quite that bright in person. So it's just the lighting that actually allows for that. But it's just kind of a nice little edge to kind of help make things look nice. CSR 45, but I am decking it out. Well, this is a full size. This is not what I would call a small concealed carry by no means. This is one that I would say would be more of an open carry firearm. Just because it is a little bit, it is a little bit bulky. It is a little bit more girthy. But as far as on the overall, it's got a great feel to it. I've got short fingers, so you can see the index finger laying in front of the actual trigger. You're going to notice that, my finger doesn't go all the way to the edge like some people that have what I call piano hands, which means they've got really long, nimbly fingers. Mine short, fat, stubby, and are made for work. So that's one of the things about that. Now, I do have a 45 for concealed carry that I do carry from time to time, and we may go into that and do a review on this as well, on that one as well, because I've got some pros and cons on it. But tonight we're just talking about the Sig Sauer P227. So one of the things that's actually nice about this is it's actually double action. So that's one of the things that's actually kind of nice. So as long as you have a round in there, it is going to go ahead and chamber. Now, once it has been fired the first time, it's going to go into the second position, but you're going to see that trigger came back quite a bit. Now, the trigger has got a little bit of a pull here that's real soft before you actually get to the next stage that allows it to go ahead and fire. So once you hit your stop point, very little movement at that point in order to go ahead and continue firing. Nice feature. What kind of intrigued me in relationship to this was actually an old Smith & Wesson that I had fired several years ago. The gentleman still has it. We went to the range here a couple of months ago, and I got to hold his old Smith & Wesson that he carried for personal protection in the shop. So it was great. Well, that's what kind of started me looking for another 45, because I have a Remington that we use from time to time. It's more of for me, it's more of a keepsake than anything. But like I said, let's stay on track today on this. So, like I said, dual trigger, that's a great feature. It's actually easy to get your finger up here if you want to go ahead and pull the hammer back. Not a lot of pressure that's required in relationship to that for a fine hit, or excuse me, a fine shot. Now you've also got a decock lever. So that's one of the other things that I thought was kind of nice. You're not going to see that typically on a lot of 1911s. That's really the only feature that it has as far as safety is concerned. Now, some of them back here on the back strap have a safety as well. That's something that you can get based on what you choose. So, anyways, all right. So one of the pros, like I said, is a decock lever. Another pro is the physical pull with having the dual trigger section on it. Another thing is it's already pre-cut, so if you want to put a laser on it, you can do so. Full-size frame. You know, it's got some weight to it. Now it's kind of hard to see again in the video. This actually has the night sights. This is actually standard for this particular model, is the night sights on it. So awesome. Well, hello from Acme Sports. Good evening or good afternoon. Yeah, it's kind of strange because I was actually going to bring you guys up into this. Acme's been seeing more of my paycheck than I have here the last few months. And it's insane. You go into they're actually just a small little local firearm store. I have the problem of whenever I go in there, I open my mouth, and if I ask for something, even if I don't see it in the case, for some reason, Alex says, "Hold on," goes to the back. I don't know if he's got some kind of a magic box or what. 95% of the time, he comes back out with whatever it is I've asked for. I don't know if he's got little elves that's building this stuff and pulling it out or what. It's just insane. But just so happened this was one of them I'd been looking for. So another one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the angle of the pistol grip. You know, this is actually a little bit more straight versus like a Glock or one of the other firearms that's out there. So once you actually grab a hold of it, try to hold my wrist straight, you're going to see that the gun moves very, very little. So it's essentially designed so that whenever you are aiming and pointing forward, you know, that you don't have that automatic kick up or kick down based on how the gun is positioned in your hand. So again, nice feel overall. Good weight, not too heavy, but it's still not what I would classify as a light gun. So, you know, it's one of the things that was kind of nice about it. Field strip. This is actually very easy to field strip. We're going to pull our slide back. Got our lever here that allows us to go ahead and disassemble. Pull that. This one, you don't have to pull the trigger to actually take it apart. So essentially that's all it is to taking that apart. We'll get back to some of the other features. Now, one of the things that you do have to be very, very careful, which is whenever you start taking this apart for the spring. Reason why is I made the mistake of thinking this was like most of all my other guns and was not aware of how the spring actually was. This actually does not have another piece on the end that keeps the spring compressed during this position. So you got to pay attention when you take this one apart. It's kind of a unique setup on the spring. That was something else that I thought was interesting. This is what I call or classify, and I'm sure if Alex was popped in here, he could probably tell me exactly. I call this a rope spring because of the fact that it is a twisted, it's a twisted pair of wire that's turned into the actual spring itself. One of the great features about using a spring like this is if for some reason it gets a break in it, it's still going to function. Even if one of these pieces get broke during the circumstances, it still gets or is still in a situation where you can still fire the gun. So that's one of the great features about that. Even though it's a little odd, it's a great feature. So I'm just going to take our finger, push up right here on the where the ejection port is, slide it forward and back out. So that's really all it takes in relationship to doing a field strip. Now, usually once I've cleaned one of these and get everything back together, I like to actually I've actually got a grease that's actually made for this. And it only takes 1 or 2 small little droplets, and I'll put it actually on these slides on the inside, and it gives it a nice nice coating once you've racked it a few times. So, you know, very, very simple on the overall, on a tear down. It goes back together just the same. Nice and simple. There's really not a whole lot of need, especially if you're using some of the cleaners that are in a spray or aerosol. You can get most of whatever you need. It's not something that you're going to have to take and disassemble the entire mechanism up in here where your firing pin is. You're not going to have to do that on an every time basis. Now, I know that there are some that's going to go to that extreme. It's not necessary to do that on an everyday clean. Now, I've taken this out to the range. I've shot it several times. I went through about 150 rounds that I've already put through this. And the assembly goes back together just the same. We'll rock it back and forth, make sure we're in there all the way. So now we're going to go into some of the cons. Okay. Get that latched. And we're good to go. So, like I said, to me, one of the pros is the grip. I like the micro texturing that they use on the sides. That's actually something that I like a whole lot better than the checkerboard. It does have a little bit of checkerboard here on the front, which is also great to allow a little bit more grip. But this is actually a micro texturing. Some of them you're going to see very large gaping texturing throughout it, which yes, it does work, but it doesn't give you a good everyday feel. So that was one of the things that I seen going back to this. I really like. I've got two or three firearms that actually have that micro coating, and that's actually something that I look for myself, just because it's a more comfortable grip, especially if you're going to go to the range and shoot a couple thousand rounds. So whenever I go, I usually shoot 2 or 3 guns at a time, and I'll shoot anywhere from 250 to 500 rounds per firearm that I take with me. So, definitely great there. Like I said, we've got our pre-cuts here. If we want to add flashlight, laser, whatever you want, as far as for your tactical add-ons. One of the only things that I've seen about this, and I love the trigger pull, but depending on how excited you are when you grab this, if you grab this the wrong way with your finger, and everybody's got that little meat right here. Let's see, where your finger kind of gets pudgy. And this is the only one that I've got that actually seems to do that. Well, when you go to pull this back, because the trigger is so wide and isn't rolled around, you won't actually catch it all the way, but you will feel a slight pinch when you actually fire it. Now, I am going to check with the guys up at Acme when I get time and see if there is a conversion for the trigger. It's really the only thing that I've seen that I just didn't care for about the actual gun. Accuracy on the range, very, very good. Was able to hold a group pattern. Typically, if you are in a situation, usually you're going to be within 5 to 10 yards for the most part. I took this and tried it at the 10-yard mark, is which most of the time I usually will play with, especially on a new gun, and then I'll work out from that point. 10 yards, great gun, very good gun. Typically was able to keep it within a 3-inch pattern most of the time, hit the target every time. We didn't do a speed test. Part of it's the fact that I'm still trying to get back to the way I used to shoot 20 some years ago. And since I've not had a whole lot of range time in the last 10 years, I'm going to have to do a little bit more practicing. But, for your initial first pull, you're going to hit right where you're going to aim. Another thing that we want to talk about in the review, that's the reason why I brought out a couple of the magazines already preloaded. $10-round mag. Oh, and by the way, you guys are shopping for one of these magulas, stop in up there at Acme or look them up on the web for here in Indiana. Reason why? They've got the best price on these, the cheapest, actually cheaper than anybody else that I have found online. But number one, it makes it very easy. But this is another thing too that you also want to look at. Yeah, like I said, I've bought about 3 different versions of loaders. This is the most simplistic, and yet it's the easiest, especially for the fact that I can go from as simple as a 380 to the 9, which I don't have any 380s, at least yet in the collection. But 9mm and above, these are just absolutely invaluable. But the reason why I actually wanted to do this is not to really show off the magula, but a lot of times whenever you're loading these, you're going to see in some instances the springs that are actually in some of these, they're just junk. Sig Sauer actually gives you really good magazines. I've seen some of them that whenever you go to load it, they feel like, which the 10th bullet's the hardest one on these, but feels like Rice Krispies on the inside, feels like metal on metal grinding, just not a pleasant feel. And whenever you load a magazine like that, it actually makes you cringe if you stop and think about it. Some people don't actually bear that in mind, but depending on what kind of condition these are in, whether it's even if it's a brand new gun, whenever you feel something that feels like it's gritty, grinding, you have to stop and think, okay, well, how many rounds can I put through that before it jams? So there again, I've done a speed test on the mags where I've tried pulling the trigger as fast as I can to empty out a clip. Try to put the gun actually through the paces. Why? If I'm to carry a firearm, well, it's for personal protection. I want to know ins and outs. Is it going to fire every single time? Now, granted, like I said, this one I've only shot about 150 rounds through it. Why? Because I grabbed 2 boxes of the wrong ammo. I actually grabbed more for the 40 cal because I also own a similar Sig Sauer in 40. So I grabbed 2 boxes off the shelf, that I had it in the place for the 45 set, didn't read it, throwed it in the bag, and when I opened up my range bag, I was kind of disappointed. I only had 3 boxes of the 45, so I was hoping on having 5. Otherwise, we would have shot a little bit more. But like I said, overall, I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as how I'm happy with the gun, I'd probably give it an 8.5 to a 9. And the reason why it's not a 10 is just for that trigger. Like I said, we're going to see what we can't do about that, because I know that there's different upgrades to different guns. If you're able to keep just your tip on there, and it's all on how you go ahead and do a placement, that may never ever be an issue. So, as most of you know, whenever I do a live feed or whenever I do a video here on YouTube especially, I typically do live feeds. I don't do pre-rehearsed, pre-recorded, self-edited, what have you. We actually go through it start to finish. We want to go ahead and do just what we did. Give you hands-on. I like having everybody that's able to come in here and add a few comments and be able to talk to the people. If there's other reviews on some other firearms, let me know. Maybe I've got them in my collection. If not, I may be able to set up something and go in and borrow one for a couple of hours and shoot one on site. I'm sure some of the guys, especially at Acme, where they've seen me so much, they actually know me by name, which is great. But like I said, let us know. I'll be happy to do some other reviews. As far as pull wise, like I said, it's great. I don't own a holster for this one yet, Alex. I'm sure you're still in there popping in and out, but still don't own a holster for this one, Alex. But it's coming whenever I can remember. But yeah, like I said, I'd give it an 8.5 to 9 for sure. Quality wise, it's definitely a 10. Now, the more you shoot this, that's one of the other things that I have read and did some work as far as on Sig Sauer's website and on some of the other reviews, especially since this is essentially a military style firearm. I usually try to do a little bit of reading up on it. I don't overthink things. Whenever I look at something, I do want to go ahead and look at the firearm itself. I do want to look at some of the other reviews that either personal people have done. Some of them are secondhand from, or second or third parties, I should say, not hand, but parties. And I like to find out more about it and the reliability. Now, one of the other things too that we want to talk about, as far as for real quick before we wrap this one up, is once this is actually fired, the way this is actually set up on the internal guts, it doesn't have the physical kick, kick you like a mule, beat you down. It actually doesn't feel like it's got much more of a kick than a 9mm. Obviously it's going to have more, but it's got just enough of a heavy enough frame and a long enough pull in relationship to the spring that you've got plenty that actually absorbs most of that, so it's not beating your wrist to death. Another thing that would actually make it a little bit more accurate, if I shot this gun and only this gun for 30 days, and instead of grabbing 2 or 3 different versions and taking them out to the range. So, but overall, like I said, very positive, very positive gun. You've got great illumination at night with the iridium sights. Again, standard. It's not a super high priced gun, but it's not a low price. So, like I said, hopefully, if anybody's got any questions, like I said, I'd in relationship to it, I'd be happy to answer anything that you've got. If not, let me know if you do have, if it is something that I can answer, I'd be more than happy to. If not, I've got guys that I can call or talk to, and again, even some of your local shops, they can answer. They can even answer some of the questions. You also have to remember when you do go into some of the different stores, not everybody has shot everything that's in there. It's just impossible. So, they can't give you an honest feel for how it is other than just what feedback they get. But that's kind of a quickie for me. Again, this video took about 30 minutes. I really hadn't planned on spending that much time, but I get in here and I talk and talk and talk. But anyways, enough said. Hopefully you enjoyed the little tutorial about the Sig Sauer P227, and it's a quick breakdown put together. Very smooth action, even disassembly, no hang-ups. So the big thing that I keep hearing, and I know for a fact on the 40 caliber that I've got, which we'll be doing a review on it eventually too. Now that one I've shot about 800 rounds through the gun. The more you shoot these, the better they get. I know it sounds kind of silly, but believe it or not, there's actually a break-in period on most of the Sig Sauer. So the more you use it, the better the trigger feels. Even from the time I purchased this, which I don't know if it actually got shot more than a box of shells through it, to be honest with you. It still had some of the original packing grease on the slide on the inside. Whenever I disassembled it and cleaned it before I actually put it into the safe when I brought it home. So again, like I said, I'm not sure where he got it, who shot it, how many times, or anything like that. But just an incredible find. But from the start of the first 50 round box to the end of 150 into it, like I said, there's actually a little bit of a break-in, and winds up better and better. So next time I take this out, hopefully here in a few weeks, we'll take it out and shoot a couple more 100 rounds through it and see if we can tell much more of a difference in relationship to the trigger. But yeah, that's the only little thing that I just, like I said, didn't care for, is the way my finger positions on here. Is it rubs that little fat right there in my finger. So, all right, guys, I appreciate it. We'll be coming up with a little bit more. I'm actually going to be talking with the guys from Lucas again. We did a video here a year ago with Lucas. See if we can't get some more free swag from Lucas as far as on some of their gun cleaning products and oils. I'm going to talk to them about that. There again, I want to have to start doing more gun reviews. All right, guys, I appreciate your time. We will be back very shortly. Since I already had everything picked up and cleaned up from last night, we will be back shortly with another video. Thanks again for watching.